Mass News on Fox 6.
New tonight, the Northampton Board of Health held a virtual meeting to discuss a proposal banning the sale of nicotine pouches at certain stores. Thanks for joining us for Western Mass News at 10 on this Thursday evening. I'm Abby Carnevale. Western Mass News reporter Addie Patterson joins us live in studio with more about this proposal. Addie, what can you tell us?
Abby, tonight's proposal was approved by the board. Starting January 1st, nicotine pouches will no longer be available on the shelves of convenience stores in Northampton. And at tonight's meeting, convenience store owners spoke out about how it'll hurt their businesses and do virtually nothing in addressing the problem of underage nicotine use.
To take a product from them and put it into a different retail channel, it does seem unfair to our retailers that are doing their best to comply with every regulation that's been thrown their way.
On Thursday, the Northampton Board of Health approved a proposal that prohibits local gas stations and convenience stores from selling nicotine pouches.
Store owners are forbidden to sell to people under 21, and they are penalized if they do so. So I don't think there's a need to add these further restrictions on store owners.
The proposal moves all nicotine pouch sales to adult-only stores, something Stephen Helfer, member of Cambridge Citizens for Smokers' Rights, says will negatively impact convenience store owners.
Many of them are immigrants of color who put in long hours and have small profit margins. They need every item in their store to keep themselves afloat.
Others saying the proposal directly impacts adults' freedom to choose.
It may be addictive, but people may enjoy it, and we feel that adults do have the right to make their own choices once they achieve the age of 21.
The Board of Health says retailers will be given until January 1st to sell any existing product they may have. For now, reporting live in studio, Addie Patterson for Western Mass News.
Thank you for that live report, Addie. Western Mass News was honored with several awards from the Massachusetts Broadcasters Association Soundbites Awards earlier this evening. The team took home a